Welcome back, all you beautiful people listening out there in podcast and YouTube land. It's me, your homeboy, Sam. I got Vince. I got Tyler. I got Timmy on the ones and twos. Hello, everybody.
What up?
What's going on?
Hi.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
We have a sad one today.
So, in case you got everybody listening out there, and if you're living under a rock, the NFC and the AFC championship was yesterday, and we got them results. Sticking to the plan. Vince, give me the two scores from yesterday.
All right, so a full slate of 2 games happened on Sunday, January 29th. AFC title game, Kansas City outlast Cincinnati 23-20, and the Philadelphia Eagles beat the 49ers 31-7. Of course, we're going to discuss all of that right now, actually.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with Eagles 49ers. Let's start there.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
This game was definitely not what we expected. I think we all expected something a little bit tighter. 31-7. 49ers just absolutely melted down. In that final fourth quarter, not a good look. We'll break that down in a second too. But Vince, I got to start with you. Give me a summary of the game, how you're feeling. And then we'll turn it over to Tyler and get his rebuttal. And then we'll have a lot of 49er and Eagles talk throughout this episode. So just start me off there.
All right. So obviously the first major point of contention that happened was the 4th down conversion by Devontae Smith. Replays ended up showing that he actually didn't catch the ball, but the Eagles were smart and got to the line real quick and snapped the ball before the 49ers could challenge. And then we fast forward a little bit. Brock Purdy gets his elbow blown out basically on a hit that ends up causing a fumble. It was initially ruled an incomplete pass, but the Eagles did challenge, and that one was overturned. So that's a fumble. Brock Purdy is out for the game. But wait, he wasn't, because the replacement quarterback, Josh Johnson, comes in, the 4th stringer, for those of you keeping track at home. He comes in, he gets concussed. And so Brock Purdy, without a ligament in his elbow, has to come back in and basically hand the ball off for the rest of the game. He does attempt, I think, 1 pass, and it goes for like 5 yards. Basically, as soon as Brock Purdy left the game the first time, I lost a lot of hope. I was not exactly planning on the 49ers win at that point. It was 7-7, and then it was not 7-7 going forward. So, I mean, I don't know. There's only so much you can do. Like I get the feeling of dejection, but when it starts to turn into a blowout and there's nothing you can really do, you have a guy who can't throw the ball at quarterback, and he's only out there because there isn't an emergency 5th string quarterback. So what do you want me to say? I mean, it sucked to watch, but it was easier for me to digest it happening because I knew there was no chance. You know, it's not like the Bengals fans that are like pointing out, oh, if only this happened, or if only that happened. Like me, it's like, shit, like I knew it was done. There's nothing I can really point to that says, you know, what if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt? I mean, that's what I can point to, but he did, and that was the end of it. So
just to interject
Tyler,
a little bit here,
go ahead.
Just to interject real quick before we get to Tyler, that touchdown at the beginning of the game that the Eagles got, and then, you know, scrambled to line up and score. The game was not decided there, you know, and then even the quote unquote questionable penalties and, you know, the fire that the referees got under this game. I don't think any of those penalties or replay issues. There's some talk about the NFL the referees didn't have a certain angle until later, and Fox had that angle and this and that. I don't think any of these penalties or anything of that nature came down. None of that decided the 49er and Eagles game.
No,
The
I would
Eagles
agree.
flat out won. The 49ers were, they lost their quarterback. Who knows what happened if he was healthy? Brock Purdy, we don't know. Unfortunately, I think the only thing that I was robbed of, because my dog was not in the fight. We're all at home watching from our boat in the desert. We wanted something a little bit more entertaining. So that's what I was robbed of, is a more entertaining game. Tyler, take your victory lap.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, start circling. Take your lap, bud.
I just want to point, last week's episode, I had told you guys that this game was going to be won on the line. It was going to be won in the trenches, and that happened to be the case. We kind of had our way on 4th and 1s and 4th and 2s, but reality, 49ers defense was a solid defense throughout the whole entire game. What happened is they just got worn out. They got worn out by one of the best O-lines in NFL right now. And I think once you got to the red zone, I think, the 49ers seemed to either give up or the fight wasn't there on the red zone. And I think it just boiled down to winning it on the line there. I do want to point out that Josh Johnson has to probably be the worst, horrific backup quarterback I have ever seen. How are you on?
How dare you insult Nate Peterman like that?
How does Josh Johnson have 10 years of football experience, 13 teams, and doesn't know how to throw the ball? You're telling me that when they got Josh Johnson in what week, I don't know, 10 or 9, something like that, when they got him?
It was later than that. It was like it was when the Jimmy G injury happened. It was the next week. So
you're telling me that Jimmy G got hurt, you're on your 3rd string quarterback, and you don't let him practice with any of the second teams just to get some reps in case something happens to Brock Purdy? Like, your last line of quarterback, you don't do anything. So I think that was the most embarrassing thing. And also too, I'm not here to criticize Shanahan on not being able to call the challenge flag, because obviously he didn't have some angles. What I am here to criticize him, though, is Josh Johnson is so bad. You got a guy who literally can't throw the ball forward, that you don't call one timeout to try and figure something out for him. You go into halftime with all 3 of your timeouts, and you can use a single one, you're bleeding out. You got to figure something out for this guy. And Shanahan just basically deer in the headlights. As soon as Purdy went out, it was deer in the headlights for him. And I will criticize that for him. Again, Christian McCaffrey was the best player on the team. I mean, best player on the field, hands down, definitely the best player on the field. And he only rushed for 84 yards and had a touchdown. I mean, Jalen Hurts wasn't great. He went 15 of 25. He only threw for 121 yards. Miles Sanders had 2 touchdowns, right? But one was, that missed call that turned into that. Then we get a penalty from the 49ers, which then leads us to be able to get the second touchdown for him. So it wasn't like we blew the doors off. We played a great defensive team. We just wore them out. That's basically all that happened to it. And then, I'm not going to speak offensively because you didn't have a quarterback. You're basically playing with your hands tied behind your back. So I told Vince this, is that you play whatever's in front of you. Them the breaks. That's all it is. And unfortunately, it didn't go the 49ers way. It didn't go the way that fans wanted it across the board. Obviously, I'm ecstatic to go into the Super Bowl, but would I have loved to have played a full strength, healthy 49ers team? Yeah, absolutely. But that's just not how it happened. That's just not how the book was written. And again, we'll see you guys. I think next year we'll see you guys. So not worried about it. So
yeah.
And it's going to be interesting when this 49ers team is led by Tom Brady. So
yeah, no, I'm hearing that call's happening a lot faster than I thought.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Tyler. The Eagles offensively were blowing teams out the, not just out the stadium, but out the damn town. They were blowing teams out. They were running them out. We had Sirianni, running down the field, mad dogging the camera like he's a player. And they didn't really have their best game, and the time of possession battle was so heavily favored to the Eagles, and they I think if that was any other defense, it would have been, you know, a 50 burger. You know, it would have been something ridiculous. And like I said, we were robbed of a more entertaining game. Who knows? Maybe it's closer. Maybe the Eagles still win. But maybe it's by a field goal. Maybe it's by a touchdown. But fans were robbed of something that was more competitive. Congrats to the Eagles. You're the one Eagles fan this week has shown any sense of decency and participation in civilization. So
Thank you for your service. Thank
The
you.
videos out of Philly are kind of wild.
You should see the bus stop outside my house.
Yeah, there's been some folks in the in our local media market posting videos and sharing their situation by going to Philadelphia, and I don't know, man. That's an ugly look for any sports fan base. Is you know, we got to stop with the physical violence, you know, spitting on people, throwing food on people, and racial slurs. And that's all fan bases. You know, I'm not going to pick on the Eagles. I'm not going to pick on any particular fan base. There's always a margin of fan bases that do this. But we gotta be better society. You know, it's sports. It's what's supposed to bring us together in competition and see the best in one another. But some of those videos coming out is an ugly look. And but all teams, all fan bases have that. But it's, you know, come on, if you're listening to this, you know, you don't need to treat your fellow fan like that. Maybe they're a fan of a different region or a different team or a different player, but you know, we don't really need to use racial slurs to get our point across. You know, we could talk smack and have fun and be respectful at the same time. So,
Yep, we're all human beings first, right?
Absolutely.
I do have a thing. Jumping back to the 49ers game, I had a question for you, Vince, and I'm curious as to what you think here.
Okay.
Obviously, the Eagles defense got after it. You know, we caused 3 fumbles and had a couple.
Only
sacks.
3 sacks, though, right?
Yeah, only 3 sacks. So my question to you, though, is that Nick Bosa, this whole entire playoffs, not just the Eagles game, but every single game in the playoffs, hasn't recorded a single sack. Being your defensive leader, is that telling to you? Does that bother you at all?
Well, I think obviously in the playoffs the teams are better competition, you know, better offensive lines, you know, generally speaking. I would say that it doesn't concern me nearly as much because they're going to focus attention on him. I just like you know, getting an extra man on him the entire time. He might have been like I mean, we saw him get taken out a couple of times by like, you know, rogue tackles and stuff like that, like while he's on the sideline. So maybe he, in this game in particular, maybe he's just like didn't have that extra gear, you know, like it was taken out of him when he got hit by rogue players at this point. I don't know.
I was doing a quick stroll through 49er Twitter and Reddit, and looks like quite a bit of 49ers fans are out. The Javon Kinlaw experiment is over. So a lot of people
he had
like,
a terrible game.
Yeah, that Bosa needs help. You know, if you're putting, you know, like Vince said, you know, you're putting an extra blocker and
sometimes 2 extra blockers. Like sometimes he's going against 3 guys.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like you might as well take their best defensive player out of the game and, you know, run the ball away from him. You're going to do things to get away from him.
Yeah.
Vince, you were going to make another point.
Also, I was going to push back and say that Fred Warner is the best Niners defensive player, not Nick Bosa. But that's also personal preference because I like linebackers more, and I also don't like Confederacy fans more.
I think the problem with Fred Warner is that I don't think he gets talked about enough. I really don't. In national media, he is a great defensive player, but nobody talks about him. They always talk about.
I mean, every time they
first
talk,
team All Pro, right? Didn't he? Make
they
first
talk
team
about
All-Pro?
him. Like I've seen like ESPN, like anytime they start talking 49ers defense, they'll talk about Bosa, but then they're also talking about Hufanga and they're talking about Fred Warner as well. So
I don't know about on a
necessarily know.
national scale. They definitely, I mean, obviously we talk about it more over here, but I don't think as much. Like Bosa is the focal point.
Well, he's the focal point because he has the 18.5 sacks. That's what it really comes down to. And that's this year. But I anytime I've heard national people talking, Fred Warner does get brought up enough, like a bunch. He probably should be brought up more, but that's only because he's, an all pro level linebacker and he's being brought up at the level of a regular boring Pro Bowl linebacker. So I just
think he's not being mentioned as a defensive player of the year, right?
Yeah,
like that's kind of like kind of a little bit of a separation where is he a defensive player of the year type of player?
I don't know that he'll ever be, because a lot of the times those DPOY guys, there's one particular thing that really puts them over the top. Like with Nick Bosa, it's the sacks, or Sauce Gardner in New York, the Jets, who's going to win the defensive player rookie of the year. Obviously it's the interceptions. Fred Warner does a little bit of everything, so the numbers itself that he's got a triple double. Basically he hits all the categories a bit, but he doesn't excel. It's not like a 50-point triple double. Like it's all it's a Draymond triple double, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's a little bit everywhere, all over the place, but yeah.
All right. Any final comments about this game? I know we're going to be talking probably a little bit more about 49ers and Eagles a little bit later.
I think we should just dive into the Brock Purdy injury update right now. And the latest that we've heard is that it's UCL. It's a ligament in the elbow injury. It's ruptured, I believe they said, and they're hoping to be able to repair it. And it's a 6-month turnaround. If they have to replace it, that's Tommy John surgery. And that is like a 14-month turnaround. So,
well, it's torn.
So
I think
it's torn. It's torn. So they're hoping to repair
it.
They have to go in and look.
I did hear a doctor. They brought some doctor onto a podcast that I was listening to, and they're saying that the surgery that Brock Purdy would get would probably put him like 6 to 8 months to recover. Because it is a little bit different than a pitcher recovering.
Yeah.
And it's because when a pitcher is throwing, there's like these mechanics of how you're twisting your arm and, where throwing a football and a baseball is different on what you're trying to do and how much torque that you're putting on the elbow. Where throwing a football, throwing is an unnatural motion for the human body. Like our body is actually not designed for it. But the torque from throwing a baseball and the torque of throwing a football is vastly different.
Yeah, the stress point is way different.
It's the same surgery and recovery that I think Josh Allen went through, or maybe
the injury that Brock Purdy has is it was due to the hit and his arm trying to go forward and being pulled backward. So it's a little bit different than what a pitcher would go through, but from what I heard, it was 6 to 8 months of, so he should be ready to go in 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 6 months from now, let's just count. It's the end of January right now. So end of February, March, April, May, June, July. So you're talking he might be best case scenario ready to go when the preseason games start. And obviously they're going to want to get him into some of those and probably play a little bit longer than you'd hope. And if that's all assuming he's on a good timeline, a 6-month timeline. Anything longer than that, you're being pushed into the regular season. There goes that Trey Lance trade talks that we had, toyed around with beforehand. The only way Trey Lance gets traded now is if you bring in somebody like Tom Brady. Like Sam had joked about.
I don't even think they trade him.
I don't think so either. And I don't see it,
because you got to look at whatever veteran quarterback you bring. Let's say it is Tom Brady. You got to look at it as a 1 year deal, right? Like even if you sign him to a 2-year deal with maybe that's an option. As a franchise, you're probably looking at it as a 1-year deal because you're hoping that Brock Purdy comes back. You're hoping Trey Lance comes back, and one of these young quarterbacks can keep the job and hopefully stay healthy.
Yeah, it's essentially a band-aid until
Yeah.
everything heals in terms of like having more quarterbacks who can do the job.
A lot of people think that the 49ers window is about 2 years, give or take, because of how Kittle is always prone to be susceptible to an injury. We don't, how much more longer do you have on the wheels with Christian McCaffrey, as a running back? So a lot of people think that window is about
Debo as
2 to 3
well.
years.
I mean,
Yeah.
how Debo plays the game, and even Brandon Ayuk to a certain degree, like how much abuse how physical they are. And then salary cap, the NFL is a salary cap league, as we all know. How are they going to keep this entire team together where, you're going to have young guys up for contract? Like, we talked about the linebacker position, Fred Warner, he's going to be up for a big deal. So how do you keep all of these pieces and retain talent that's still young and healthy and keep it all intact? So they're going to be up against it in the next few years. And the good thing is Shanahan has shown, and so has John Lynch, has shown that they're able to kind of pivot on the fly and recognize, identify guys that fit into their system. So that's, hopefully they can do that again.
And one last note for me on this one is that I've been noticing that Brock Purdy, until the announcement was about today about his elbow, he was getting a lot of flack of, could he have played that game? Did he, not man up and do it? And I think that really bothers me. The same people who are saying this are the same people who, call out sick when their nose itches funny, right? So to call on another man's toughness, I think is the most ridiculous thing in the world. So if you can't play, you can't play,
He was physically incapable of throwing a ball further than 5 yards.
Exactly.
He told him that. I mean, he was trying to warm up. Like, how many times did we see on like a Twitter timeline, or they talked about it like during commercial breaks? Brock Purdy was trying to do it, and he just couldn't do it. It wasn't there, and that's because the UCL was gone. So
exactly.
It's ridiculous to try to say that he couldn't. And he did go back in there. He did throw another a 4-yard pass to Christian McCaffrey, and that probably hurt like hell.
Oh, I'm sure.
So anybody criticizing Brock's toughness can go take a long walk off a short pier. I'm done. With that.
Absolutely. All right, Kansas City Chiefs and Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, that game, man. That game was, look, I know what's Asamle or whatever his name is that had the rough in the passer on Mahomes, and then that kind of was the penalty that sealed the deal for the Chiefs to go on and win. But man, that felt so pro Chiefs, those referees, everything about it. I mean, they had a third down play where apparently they couldn't hear the whistle. The referee ran 5 yards out into the field and it was like, whatever, I give up. And then they gave him another free play. Like that, if that game, the NFL wanted the Chiefs and they got the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. That's what it felt like to me. I don't think the Chiefs earned that win. I think the refs helped them get that win.
Yeah, they were gifted for sure. Every major break went Kansas City's way, especially in the second half. And I mean, the other part of it, though, is the Bengals had opportunities to win that game outright, and they ended up not being able to get the job done through some of their own misplays, but also, like these bad calls going against you. And the more it starts to snowball, it starts to feel like quicksand, maybe. And you're just like, it just gets tougher and tougher. And I don't know, man. I feel bad.
I agree with you guys. We watched the games together, and I agree with you with the referees, especially the KC and Cincinnati game. It just seemed to be so heavily favored towards Kansas City. But just to play devil's advocate, what do you do? How do you fix it? Because the answer is not more refs. The answer isn't more replay, because we see that replay doesn't get it right. They can't get the right footage or the right
answer.
I know.
What do we do?
I have a thought.
Okay.
These are still part-time refs. They're still part-time.
Full-time.
Make them full-time. Make them like you can the NFL can afford to pay each referee like a real salary. Like, I don't know what they're getting right now, 40K, 50K. They can pay them up. They can double their salary and make them actually full-time referees who can really dedicate themselves to be better. And also you can, by making them full-time, you can get better people more interested in becoming referees, people that'll be focused on that kind of stuff instead of guys that are, I don't know, they're probably gambling on shit like on the side, but they're part-time, you know what, they're not going to spend the money to try to investigate
so
unless something hits the deck.
2 things on that. I think you should host your own title game because apparently the referees are going to be in favor of you if you host your own title game. Secondly, my concern with getting full-time refs, as I think it's great, is the Angel Hernandez. Will you get an NFL version of the Angel Hernandez if you have a full-time referee who's just constantly doing bad calls, but there's nothing you can do because he's,
well, it's like 10 years.
I get that. And I think that if you're going to make them full time and there is a way to tenure somebody, I think you make it, I don't know, 5 years or something like that before they get tenure. Or I don't know what you do, but like give them like, you don't want a 90-day probationary period before you give somebody the keys to the fucking game or whatever. You want to make sure that they're fully trained and they're fully up to the task, and that they're willing to keep doing it for several years. And I think that's where, if you say like, maybe you're full-time, you get the pay and benefits of full-time right from the start, but you don't, at the end of every year we review. And if you're not up to the standard that we like, we can get rid of you at least for the first 5 years or something like that. And then maybe the referees have a union.
I think they should incentivize them. You do good as a referee, you get to do the big games and you get a little bit of extra money by doing those big games.
Well,
and
they do kind of do that right now. And that's part of the problem is even the good referees still make dog shit calls, So I think just better training, and these guys can't afford to keep training all the time on what to look for and anything because they're part-time. They have to have other jobs in the off season.
That's fair.
The other thing too is how do you guys feel about replay or getting rid of replay? I think we all kind of remember the NFL pre and post replay. We were all really young before this modern era of football with replay and challenges and this and that. I'm actually not a fan of replay and challenges because I mean it's a crapshoot. Like sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. Like a lot of times they don't even get the call right, even on its replay. And then I talk to people, outside in the everyday world, and we get used to this super duper slow motion Michael Bay where, it's not in real time. It's not in real time. So I'm just not a big fan of replay. I think it stops the game. It delays the game. I get why the NFL wants it. It's because it adds to the drama, maybe. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of it. What do you guys think? I just think that replay,
if you got 15 cameras and you're going to be able to have a challenge, you should be able to have access to 15 cameras. This nonsense of they didn't have, Fox had the only camera that could see Smith's catch. I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
I don't understand the camera placement where, how come like in the regular season, they show, and why is the angle never on, like dead on with the goal line? It's always kind of like off,
a little offset. Yeah.
Like,
so it's like,
why is there a camera like looking from both sides of the goal line or whatever? On the visitor side and the home side looking, you got this fly cam. You have, you can look straight down on it. I just don't understand sometimes the camera placement of certain situations, especially on like goal line situations. I don't understand. I mean, and even like first down markers, I see the cameras on a big ass, it's like a cart, it's like on this ladder How
It's a
come they
scissor
don't
lift.
yeah, it's on a
Yeah.
lift. How come they don't have that like on the line where it's at? So I don't know.
Well,
Sometimes
they
it's
have
baffling.
pylon cameras, but they only see so far. They don't see all the way across, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is why are we still using a metal chain for our 10-yard thing? The chain
Oh,
broke
yes.
during the Eagles
When
game.
it
Why can't we
broke,
just do a laser
what?
light?
Like not, like why is there a metal chain on the field where like a multi-million-dollar athlete could like, I don't know if it's ever happened, but I would be the guy that's like, guys, we got to do some risk management of having a freaking metal chain that could break on the field next to my $30 million a year quarterback or something. Like, why is it just like a soft rope? Like, why can't I don't know, man. Like, there are some things that I don't think going to a rope or some other product is going to affect the bottom line of the NFL.
I actually
1
do.
cent.
I do know why that they're still using the chain as it is right now, and it's because when they go out to do the measurements, there's actually one thing that you don't ever see is there's like a little tag, okay, and it has like a little clip on it, and wherever the big like solid line is on the 5 or the 10 or the 15, 20, whatever, they put that marker, like they put that little tag right on that line, and they don't hold it from stick to stick. They hold it from that tag on the line to the stick, and that's how they measure whether they got the first down.
You're
or not.
talking about the orange arrow that sits on the out of bounds grass.
No, because that's like at the first. That's at the first down line. There's like a little tiny strap basically with a little hook on it that they like. But that's how they hold it, and that's how they measure it. And that's where they go from. So that way, because if it's like on the 37.5, and then you got to get to the 47.5 or whatever, it's tough to like make that completely accurate, like from where the first down line was to where you started the drive or whatever.
Let me tell you how I measure the 10
bad.
yards. Let me show you how I measure the first down.
Uh-huh.
I take my piece of paper, and I slide it in between, and then that tells me if it's a first down or not. I can't believe
that was also some bullshit that went against the Raiders.
Oh man. So yeah, it's like there is a reason why they're still using a chain. It's a stupid ass reason, but because we have technology now, I have to believe that we could figure this stuff out without having, like you said, putting multi-million-dollar players at risk because of a hunk of metal on the field.
We still have
even
Fox.
The football. Can't you put like a sensor,
a chip?
In the, and look at all the data it would give you: the velocity of the football, the spin rate of the football, how hard it was kicked. You know what I mean? You could do all these things, and it could tell you the GPS location if it crossed this line or that. I don't know, man. It just seems like we're capable of doing it with pencil and paper, but guess what, guys? We got a fucking calculator. we can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still kicking into the wires of sky cams. Like we can't even get that shit right. I mean,
I just feel like, we either embrace technology to get it right, or if we're not going to embrace it and get it right, just fuck it, get rid of it. Don't let any technology in.
Yeah.
And
it is kind of half-assed at this point right now. Yeah.
It's, they talk about this command center and hot camera and all this crazy mumbo jumbo that the NFL has. And then they say they didn't get the angle, or they didn't get it fast enough, or, the internet went down in New York. I don't know, but it's just always, you make billions of dollars. We don't want to hear the excuses.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's always something at the most pivotal time, at the most critical moment in the playoffs. It just seems like always something is going on. So the Bengals lose to the Chiefs. Who you got now? Next round is Chiefs and Eagles.
Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl, playing on February 12th, I believe. And kickoff for that will be 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So
I think we're gonna hold out on our picks till next week, just so we can get full injury reports and get the full detail, the full scope of things. And
yeah.
I mean, obviously we know what I'm gonna pick, but between you guys,
there's no reason to.
Chiefs.
Yeah,
yes,
there's no reason to like make a prediction right now. If we don't have to, we want to make sure we get as much information as possible.
Yeah. And I also think Jalen is playing hurt. I didn't think he was hurt. He's definitely playing hurt. That shoulder looks, I mean, he's overthrown the ball like crazy. So I'll take another 2 weeks and, then I'll make my full solid prediction with hot takes with it.
Cool. Hey, Vince, did you want to go over the spreadsheet right now on our pick'em?
No, I mean, basically after this weekend, both Sam and Tyler got one of the two games right. I got none of them right. So our standings are Sam is in first place with 14 points. Tyler is in second place with 13 points. I'm in last with 9 points, but the Super Bowl is worth 8 points each. So nobody's out of it just yet. And there's not going to be any bonus points because nobody has either of their preseason predictions in the Super Bowl. So no bonus points. It is just, we all came real close with one of our two picks in the preseason, but it was just not meant to be this year. So Here we are.
All right, guys, you got any final comments about this past weekend?
No, cool. I think we've tried that one out.
I'll save my comments about other NFL news for next week since we don't have football games. So there's a lot already going on in the hot stove, but we'll get to that next week. Jumping over to NBA news, Tyler, are the Grizzlies padding stats? Question. Oh, the drama. Lay it out.
If you're listening on YouTube, I've already asked our fellow 1s and 2 and Tim to go ahead and put the link of this post into our into our section on YouTube there. There was a post on Saturday morning, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name, his username correctly, but I'm going to go with what I think it is. So it's AD Massive 6666. He posted a thing about the Memphis Grizzlies scorekeeper posting fraudulent numbers. I woke up on Saturday morning at like 6, 7 a.m. and this thing already had like 30,000 likes on it. I was like, wow, something's going on. It's a very long-winded piece that you can read on your own time. I'll give you one excerpt from it. He was noticing that Jaren Jackson, the player in question for the Memphis Grizzlies, he was leading the defensive player of the year stats. And when looking at the stats of his road game versus his home game, there was something off about it. His home stats seem to be a lot better percentage wise than his road game stats. So reading from the excerpt, it says, I decided to take a closer look at his games, and immediately one thing became crystal clear. At home in Memphis, he has 66 blocks in 16 home games, averaging just a little bit over 4 blocks per game, versus 35 in 16 road games, averaging just a little over 2 blocks in nearly identical minutes. It was an 89% increase in Memphis. In home games, he was credited with 22 steals in 16 home games versus only 10 steals in 16 road games. This means he's averaging nearly 1.4 steals per game at home, but just 0.63 steals on the road per game. That's an astounding 120% increase in Memphis. In home games, he has been credited with 88 blocks plus steals versus 45 on the road. This equates to an average of an outlandish 5.5 blocks and steals at home in limited minutes versus a reasonable, realistic, and still outstanding 2.81 steal blocks per game on the road. So basically what's happening is do home statisticians pad their players' stats? Yeah, they kind of do. The NBA knows that. They've made that aware, but nothing to a level where you get an increase of 120%. So two things are happening here. Either Jaren Jackson is playing out of his mind when he comes home, and then when he's on the road, he's, just not the same guy, or statistician is padding all of his stats. So I like to think maybe a little bit of the latter. The NBA has come out and they made their own comments on the situation, saying that statisticians that are hired for the NBA are not hired by the NBA, more or less they are hired by the team as a third-party company, right? So why is this a big deal? It wouldn't be a big deal because steals don't really determine a game. Blocks don't really always determine a game, right? It's always who can score more points. The problem is that if you're a betting person and you're betting on Jaren Jackson to do, over or under on blocks per game, and then the stats are getting padded and inflated and you're losing out on money, you're going to feel like you're cheated. If you're betting on the defensive player of the year and Jaren Jackson is leading in all categories, and then you find out his stats are padded, you're going to feel cheated. And it's gotten to the point where now he is removed off of Caesar's betting odds as the defensive player of the year. There's not even a stat for, there's not even a player listed. Line. Yep. It's gone. So NBA says there's smoke. Reddit people say that's fire. But what I think is interesting is that it was posted on Reddit and it went viral to the point of Caesar's Palace had to remove things off the betting line. So
well,
I guess my question
to add
you
to
guys,
it, Tyler, I'm looking at the article, which is from CBS Sports.
mm-hmm.
And there's a video example, and it says here that Zion Williamson went up for a layup, loses control of the ball, but Jaren Jackson's credited with a block. So these internet sleuths are going to go back every single game,
mm-hmm.
and they're gonna post videos. So there's already video evidence that this has happened once,
Yeah.
If you go to the Reddit thing, there's actually like 5 or 6
I think there
videos
was 7 examples called out on that Reddit post. Yeah.
So quick question: why this one player? Like, why him?
It's a good question.
I don't think it's necessarily the player. I think somebody is, this stats person is probably taking it into their own hands, and some favoritism, some homerism. I don't think the player himself is, hey, bro, back my stats,
Do me a favor,
it's
man.
seeing an opportunity because he is a pretty good defensive player. Yeah. So it's seizing on an opportunity to pad the stats of a guy who's good and make him look really great, I think is the hope. And to try to get him, get him some postseason honors, of some kind.
And the
defensive
NBA
player of the year,
they don't take to cheating very kindly with the whole Tim Donahue situation here too. Donahue, sorry. Yeah. So he was just let you know, Tim, he was the referee for the playoff game between the Lakers and the Kings, but he was betting
back in 2002.
Yeah. So he was betting on the games and calling fouls when they weren't fouls. So that way the Lakers would end up winning that
the series. Kings were going to win that game.
Oh yeah.
The Kings 100%. Are going to win that game. And then out of nowhere, the Lakers win the game.
And everybody was like, what?
And it wasn't just
it
wasn't just any game. It was a game 7.
Yeah.
It was the Western Conference Finals, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a massive game. And no, clearly that game was altered because of the referee. I think what Tyler's getting to is out of all the major leagues, the NBA has had this problem of gambling issues, changing the outcomes of games. This has happened before with the NBA and in recent history. It's not 30 years ago. So
I mean, MLB has their own. They have their own toxicity with cheating the system. You got your Astros, you got your Pete Roses, but I guess my question to this is, if it's a third party company that's doing your stats, does the NBA really have to look at that as under the microscope and be like,
that's so weird. I would think that the NBA would have had their own, like, right? You would be an NBA employee, not even a Memphis Grizzly or Golden State Warrior employee. You would be an NBA employee. I would think the crazy part about that too
is that it's not like the NBA team calls one agency and it's like, hey, we're going to need a statistician for this team. it says here that each team provides their own scorekeepers at their home arena. So they could be a statistician for any company. It's not the same across the board. I think that's to me, I think that's pretty telling because again, if you are betting and you're losing out when maybe you probably should have won, that would piss me off.
And it's not just betting either. It's also fantasy sports. A lot of people are playing fantasy basketball now, and those defensive stats can make the difference between you winning a week and losing a week. And, it might be something you might want to take to your league commissioner and say, hold on. You know, I don't know, man. They got to resolve this. They got to resolve it quickly because there's a lot of things on the line. It's not, it's the gambling, it's the fantasy sports, it's the end of the year awards and stuff like that. We need to make sure that it's the right stats, it's the right given to the right players for the right reasons and all of that. And so it is important to get this right and to get it right quickly.
It's interesting that it happened with the Grizzlies because they have been this franchise over the past 3 years that thinks they have arrived.
Yeah.
They haven't won jack shit.
Well, the other thing too is that you get bonuses for winning awards like this. And what if you were a player that was, if the stats were true, you were actually the better one and not Jaren Jackson. You know what I mean? So there's implications across the board. Even the NBA has their own problems to deal with now. But yeah, I think it's interesting that it was a post on Reddit on Saturday morning and it blew up on Sunday. And here's a consequence.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow it up. To keep track on this topic. So, let's move on to our beloved Warriors. Let's look at some of the past few games they've been in. Vince, you want to keep going with the scores?
Sure. Speaking of Memphis Grizzlies, the Warriors beat Memphis 122-120, and they also beat Toronto 129-117. Both of those games were at home at Chase Center, and the Warriors are currently 25 wins, 24 losses, 9th in the West. They are playing right now, so there will be another game in the like that happened between now and the time we release this episode. But yeah, so the Warriors are, hanging around right around the playing game, and obviously we want them to be better than that. We want them to be in the top 6 so they don't have to mess around with the playoff game. And if they can even find their way into the top 4, maybe be the home team advantage in the first round.
Just so you guys know, halftime for the Warriors playing against the Thunder. Warriors are up 63-48 at halftime. But
I like to hear that.
Anything could change. I've seen Warriors blow worse.
25-point lead at half. That's, promising, and they better hold on.
You must be behind because my screen shows that we're in the third quarter and it's 71-54.
Okay, so halftime just ended. Yeah. Anywho, like I said, 9th in the West. Let's pick it up, boys.
Do you want to pull this Band-Aid off real quick? I just added a note to it. I don't know if you have anything else for basketball, but
I have nothing.
So baseball, pitchers and catchers report, February 15th. Chad Pinder will not be on there. Chad Pinder just signed with the Reds.
Breaking news. Play that funny little guitar riff or something. I don't know.
I think the A's just traded, I can't remember the pitcher's name. They traded him last week. So I don't know who's going to show up.
Cole Irvin got traded. So, I mean, we've been expecting this. Yeah.
So I don't know who's going to show up on February 15th. Maybe us 4 will show up. We'll just bring our own glove and bat and say we're ready.
Hey, I'm down with that. Let's do it.
I can do 5 jumping jacks. Yeah, let's go.
I'm ready, guys. Put me in, coach.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a 90 loss year, probably close to 100 again. But 90.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'll show up with just one of those erase pens on the board and be like, I could put people's names on here. It'll be fun because there'll be a new name every single day.
I ran this by
see more butts.
I ran this by Julia, and she said I was crazy in that no one would get it. No one would get the sarcasm if I showed up with my jersey that said, John Fisher's #1 fan. She said no one would get it. She thinks that I would come across truly as the #1 fan. It's just really sad that this dude just doesn't even try. You don't even need to be #1 in payroll. Like, you could be 15 and it would just be a drop in the bucket, and you can be competitive. And
if they were 20, if they were 20th,
dude, it's so
I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking you to be the 20th out of 30 teams. If you can get to that point in terms of spending on payroll, the kind of team you could put together. I mean, I don't know, man. It's fucking
So I guess I have a question though, because obviously he runs the bottom of the payroll because he'll get that bonus money that comes with being, one of the worst teams and the lowest payroll, right? I guess my question is, he does the same thing with the San Jose Earthquakes.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Does he get a payout bonus from having the lowest revenue and
well, I don't know about I don't know how MLS has their revenue sharing set up, but MLB had revenue sharing and then they got rid of revenue sharing, and then on this last collective bargaining agreement they brought it back, but they will not release the terms. The last time revenue sharing was published, there's an article that you can find pretty easily online. But in the old days of the first iteration of revenue sharing, the A's were said to be getting somewhere around $30 million a season. And that ran for about 5 or 6 seasons. So that's why there's been a lot of A's fans, a lot of, articles about where did all this money go? Because there's no stadium, there's no free agent signings. You clearly haven't invested that money in the minor leagues. You haven't improved your minor leagues. Your international work hasn't improved. So where is all this money going? And to me, the answer is clear: is they line their own pockets. I'm sure some money is in a bank account for the stadium or whatever. But you're telling me that the brokest, or not even the brokest, the cheapest franchise in MLB, the general manager and president has enough capital to start shopping to buy a soccer club? Billy Beane is now part of a group leading to go try to buy other sports franchises. How the fuck does he have money to do this as a president? It's because he was cut in on the profits. His last contract before he left the A's, he was actually cut in. He was given a percentage of the ownership group. And that's why since that contract, I always said, then Billy Beane's part of the problem. Because if he's part of the ownership, you can't have it both ways. You're not just an employee anymore. You're also the employer, and you're choosing to be cheap. You're choosing to get rid of players and not award them a contract. So I have, when I was a kid, man, I was a big time supporter of Billy Beane, because I saw that they were winning with the budget, and I bought into the Moneyball stuff. I read the book, and by the time the movie came out, I was already kind of questioning Moneyball. I was questioning this whole philosophy of what was going on with Moneyball. And then by the time the movie came out, what a terrible movie. Not the acting, I don't have any criticism against the actors. It's a Hollywood movie, but that movie is extremely inaccurate. And they glorify what Billy Beane is doing when it should be vilified. At this point, it should be vilified. He's part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. And I don't know what else to say. It's garbage. I made this comment yesterday to a friend of ours who was here watching the football game with us, who's also a really big A's fan. We went on trips together to other cities and watched the A's play the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, and every time we went to a city, we met all these fans of the other teams, and we talk our smack, they talk their smack. But pretty much everywhere I've got to go, when I'm wearing my A's jersey, people are always like, "Hey, are you guys from Oakland?" Or, "Yeah, we're from the Bay Area. We live in Oakland right now. That's where we're at." And they're always like, "We love, if I wasn't a Yankee fan or a Red Sox fan or whatever fan, I actually like the A's. I really like the players they have. I like their color scheme. I like the whole the history of them. They won 3 in a row." The Bash brothers, like, the Oakland A's have a great history, and it's just really sad that this ownership group does nothing to honor the legacy of this historic franchise and does nothing to build on its future. We've talked about this numerous times. The St. Louis Cardinals, St. Louis is not a bigger media market than California, than the Bay Area. And, it's because the ownership group is committed to winning. They're all in all the time. If the A's ownership was that, it would be a completely different franchise. We talked about Joe Lacob has the standing offer for the A's. If Joe Lacob bought this team, middle of the season, that stadium would be sold out forever. That stadium would be sold out for the rest of the season.
I agree.
Because,
I also think
because the energy that the fan base would have.
But also too, so that's not still off the table per se. The Angels are not selling anymore. So Joe Lacob's still trying to buy an MLB team. So I guess what we're hoping for is 3 things. Either, Fisher wakes up and it's like, you know what? I think it's time to sell the team. Everyone hates me. I should just sell the team, right? Or we're waiting for him to kick the bucket. And lastly, we're waiting for some controversy to happen that makes him have to sell the team. That's the 3 ways that we're going to get him to get rid of the team. And I don't think any of them are going to happen, except maybe he kicks the bucket, but we're all going to be in our 50s by that time.
Yeah. I think the only way he's going to sell is the roadmap for Oakland. Howard Terminal shuts down, that's truly not an option. And Las Vegas is not an option. I think that's the only way he's going to sell, is if both cities are not an option. Or I think Oakland will always be an option. It just depends on how much money in this redistricting of an area of Oakland. So the A's are also wanting to rezone an area where a specific area would be, Howard Terminal, where they get part of the tax revenue paid back for the loans that the A's take out, because essentially the A's can get the money, can get the loans for infrastructure and certain things that the city can't pay for. They can't get the money. So I think that's the only way he's going to sell the team, is if the deal is not going to work out to his favor and he's too tired, he's too burnt out on pursuing this. So
I mean,
I think that's the way. I think that's probably the most likely way that he does sell before getting a stadium built, is if Vegas basically says no, it's not going to happen, and then this Howard Terminal thing drags on another year and it's still where it is right now, which is, kind of stuck in the mud a little bit, waiting on approvals and all that other stuff. Can you imagine
though, Joe Lacob bought this team, day one most loved baseball owner?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the line to polish his ball sack will be around the stadium 5 times, man.
We already said that the level or the amount this team would be worth would double, triple maybe.
Yeah.
Triple.
I mean,
and the thing is, I think, like, let's say he bought them tomorrow. I think as fans, we would say it's going to take 3 to 4 years to get the farm system to get it going. But I think, like, we would be thinking within the next 5 to 7 years, we should be contenders. I think we would give all of the leeway in the sense of it's going to take them some time to find the general manager, the president, the coaching, the minor leagues, the philosophy change, get out of this money ball, probably a stadium resolution. But I think he would have all of that equity built up that fans would still come out to the games, and you would see progress in increments. You might see, certain players, maybe they're probably not going to be able to get a big time free agent until they're like in contention. But I think you would see players, homegrown talent, stay with the team. So, for example, Luriano, if he comes up for contract and he's having a good year, you would see a player like that be retained. You wouldn't see these trades where you have players that are still really good, like Sean Murphy. You wouldn't see him get sent out of town. You would probably see contract extensions. What was it? Joe Lacob approved the David Lee deal as he was buying the team. He that was all happening at one time, and he went ahead and approved the David Lee deal, trade, and the contract extension. So, he's a smart guy. So I think he would be a perfect owner, and I think he would already have the equity built up with the fan base.
I hate jumping back and forth here on different sports here, but we're talking about the man, and it makes me think about it. Bob Myers still hasn't signed a contract to be the general manager for the Warriors going into the foreseeable future. I know that we had brought it up when we were talking about how, maybe he doesn't want to be it. Maybe the contract isn't right for him. He's come out and said that he wants to explore other things, and he looks at himself in the mirror and wonders if this is what he wants to do going forward. So I'll save that for next week, but I just wanted to point that out, that Bob Myers has not signed that contract with the Warriors. So
yeah, for sure. Vince, we're going to be doing some, let's jump over to the NHL, San Jose Sharks.
All right. So we are heading into All-Star weekend, and Erik Karlsson will be representing San Jose, and they are playing in Florida down at Sunrise. I think the name is the name of the city. It's where the Florida, what are they? Florida Panthers. God, I blinked on them. I kept wanting
Florida
to call them something else. Florida fucking Panthers. That's their home, is about 40 minutes outside of Miami. So Karlsson is going to go represent Team Teal and put on a show, and hopefully he keeps staying healthy and keeps playing well. That being said, the Sharks last week, it was a little bit rough. It could have been a lot worse. They end up losing at Detroit 3-2 in overtime. Then they go to Carolina, visit our old friend Brent Burns. They lose 5-4 in overtime. Then they go to Pittsburgh and they win against Sidney Crosby and the boys 6-4. They're currently 15 wins, 25 losses, 11 overtime losses. That is good for 7th in the Pacific. They are 4 points clear of the Anaheim Ducks. Bang, bang, quack, quack, motherfuckers.
yes. Love it.
So when do we see the young guys? Has there been any talk about these top
the Sharks
picks and stuff?
The Sharks actually did make a trade with Colorado, so they sent a couple of guys over. Ryan Merkley is one of them. I forgot to look up that deal, but they're starting to send away some of the talent. So I think they're starting to blow it up. Timo Meyer's the big name that's hanging out there right now, and a lot of teams are asking about him, and we'll see what happens where he ends up going, what kind of deal, what kind of package they get back in return. But it's the process of blowing it up has begun. So we're in for a little bit of a long haul. And frankly, we talked about how Joe Lacob has built up equity. I think the Sharks, for being basically in it for 20 years, they built up at least a little bit of equity. The team has never had a full rebuild before, really. So this is the first time this is happening. And I think as a fan, I get that, and I'm willing to, hang around and play ball and see how it goes. I'm still I only really go to a couple games a year. I can't really afford to go to a lot because Sharks games are expensive. What
isn't expensive is Barracudas. We gotta go.
Barracuda. Yeah, we'll go to a Barracuda game for sure. But it's so I still go to a couple games a year. I find some of the more important games, like Patrick Marleau's jersey retirement. I'm going to that one. So just looking for all the fun stuff to do while watching a team rebuild.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, it's going to be really exciting once those these top players come up. I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch. Tyler, you got a Wrexham update?
Oh, yeah. So that Eagles 49ers game may not have been fun to watch, but this Wrexham match, holy cow, that was so much fun. So Wrexham played Sheffield United in the fourth round of the FA Cup. As we've stated last week, Sheffield United is tops in the Championship League. The next league would be the Premiership or the Premier League, where all the big dogs play. You see like the Manchester Cities, Manchester United, things of that nature. So Sheffield United is currently in second in the Championship League. They will, barring a catastrophic failure, move on to the next level there. So Wrexham, being in the fifth league, we're playing against a really top dog. And obviously they were supposed to be written out. Not only did they not get written out, they tied the game, and it was so great and defeating at the same time. Paul Mullen punches one in. They go up 3-2 against Sheffield in like the 89th minute or 80th minute or something of that nature.
It was like 85th, I think. Yeah. It was pretty late.
And then like 2 minutes later, Egan for Sheffield punches it in and ties the game. So now they go into basically they're going to replay the match again. So, but the fact that they were able to almost win this game, but let alone tie the game and move on to be able to play them again, which they'll be playing in Wrexham. Shout out to them, man. If you want an underdog team to root for, this is what you should root for. I mean, this is something that you don't see on an everyday basis. You never see
real life Ted Lasso.
Team. It really is.
Right. Yeah.
It really is. No, it was a really fun match. It was highs and lows, ended on a low, unfortunately, but they get a second chance. They get a second crack at it, and that's all they could ask for. They also do get money from this for playing in these league matches. So getting to play it twice just doesn't do anything but bode well for the club itself. So I don't know when the next game is. I'll have to look at when they rescheduled it. I think it's in like the next 2 weeks. They do it fairly quick.
Because they got to move on to the next round. So yeah, they got to get it laid out fairly quickly.
But I'm looking forward to it. Super excited for Wrexham. I think I also love the fact that one of the owners is an Eagles fan too. So there's also that note. So yeah.
It's not the Deadpool. It's Rob McElhenney. If you've watched Welcome to Wrexham, you get it.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good series. Check it out. You'll fall in love with Wrexham, because I fell in love with Wrexham and I had no idea who they were until this series.
Did you start watching it because of the Wrexham updates?
I think I just started watching them because we started talking about Wrexham, and then I saw the series was on Hulu and I started watching it, and I was like, this is a great underdog story.
Yeah.
It's everything. Ironically, it's like an American story in a way, because it's like from rags to riches, kind of like coming from the rock bottom and working your way up, striving and all that kind of stuff. So it's very inspiring.
They were a top team at one point, long time ago, and they just they kept falling and falling and falling, and they've spent the last 15-ish years at the fifth level. And this is kind of where they've bottomed out.
There's a lot of parallels with them in the Oakland A's.
Exactly.
I mean, the reason why they bottomed out, to Vince's point, is that the ownership was just terrible. The ownership
sucked them dry, man.
Yeah, he was just trying to make profit off of whatever he could. And now that they're under new ownership, things seem to be going in the right direction. So if you're an A's fan, you might like them too, because there's a lot of parallels for you.
Sweet. Yeah. All right, guys. Any final points after the Wrexham update?
I'm all set, man.
All right, guys. Everybody out there in podcast land, YouTube land, thank you so much for listening to the SVT podcast. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Hit the subscribe bell and get those notifications for our next episode. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at SVT Sports Pod. Slide into our DMs. We would love to interact with you.
All right, good night, you beautiful, beautiful creatures.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Later.